All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so the first thing I need to do tonight is to open the public budget hearing. So I'll go ahead and do that starting at 6:30, and we'll keep it open till 7 p.m. So did we have any comments submitted, Julie? We have not? Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and start with our regular meeting then. So we do have a revised agenda in front of everybody. There are a number of additions to the consent agenda and a couple of other late items. So I'll entertain approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. And opposed? Okay, we'll move on. Again, no public comments tonight, Julie? Okay. All right, we'll move on to our certified and classified representatives then. Should be joining us via Zoom.
If you're okay with it, Velma, I'll start. Over here with the certified folks, we are ending the year pretty strong. It's that balance between getting the technology back safely and also trying to, not overwork all of our precious, amazing, staff who are trying to, simultaneously teach and keep kids going at the end of the year and also, get as much learning as possible done right here at the end. I am excited to announce that I will be replaced next year by Steve Thorpe, who is going to do an amazing job here as president. And so that's who you're going to be listening to after this meeting. So yeah, thank you very much. And I'll let Velma take it from here.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I kind of agree with what Elizabeth said. I mean, trying to wind down this school year has been crazy, but it's going to happen. I'm hoping all electronics come back. There, that's going to be the big thing, getting all of the electronics back. Well, and in working condition. That's kind of a big one too. But for the most part, everybody's excited. We're all working hard. Kids are learning. They're thrilled to be at school. It's kind of nice to see the smiles when they come. Some of the kids are not so happy school's ending because it's like we haven't been at school, but this last term. So, but I think it's finishing strong.
All right, thanks, Velma. Superintendent's report, Tom.
Okay, first I'd like to talk about graduation, class of 2021. Josh, is my mic on too loud? Okay. Big thank you to the class of 2021, all the staff, facilities crew for the setup. Special thanks to Coach Thorpe, Principal Ralph Brown, Josh Darwood for their leadership and making the event happen. Thank you to the weather. It did not rain. That was fantastic. And then back to the students. It was a student-driven graduation. Great speeches. It was a classy, class of 2021 represented themselves real well. Extraordinary year. They have grit, and that skill will serve them well in their future. So I wanted to make those remarks before my report. Now getting to my regular report, enrollment, if you refer to your packet, 5B1, the first table, you'll notice that not much has changed in our enrollment. It's been fairly steady the last 3 months since the January report. We are, if you look, cross-reference the report to previous years, on the following table, you'll notice that we're still about 100 students down from our enrollment previous years. So I really have nothing new to report regarding the enrollment at this time that I didn't report previously. Any questions? Moving on to health and safety. If you flip the page in the packet, the school board will recognize the return for metrics for returning to in-person model, or metrics that we follow. It shows us what recommended instructional deliveries we should be delivering per the county metrics. And on the following page, 4B2, Lynn County, these numbers were, we put in the packet last week. You'll notice 308, 252, 165 is, I didn't catch one today. Usually they cut the numbers usually around this evening, but case counts are going down for the county. COVID cases are going down, so that's a good sign. Below this, you'll notice the roadmap to the final RSSL guidance, Ready School Safe Learners. And so this is a draft from ODE telling us the timeline when they will be talking about next year's guidance. So if you'll notice the July 22nd, that's the date we anticipate that ODE will be issuing next year's health and safety protocols. So we're waiting to examine that. I have Nurse Patty O'Day here. I'd like to welcome her to help me with my report. Patty, thank you for this year, for all the hard work that you and Sherry have done for our students in our community. So I'd like to welcome you to the microphone to say a few things and answer any questions.
Hello, everyone. I'm kind of going to summarize our year, and then this is my opportunity because the nurses don't come to board meetings all the time usually, and I'm hoping next year you won't need me here. So this is my last hoorah. I get to say a few thank yous too. When I started this job last year, I worked 6 months under normal conditions, and then COVID hit, and everything changed. It's been a long year of challenges and rewards. Our district did an amazing job following and maintaining COVID protocols and guidelines. At times, it seemed like we were scrambling to keep up with the daily changes. I never thought I would be working on a daily basis with the superintendent and the administrators of each school. Tom, I can't imagine getting through this year without your support. We were able to laugh, vent, brainstorm, improvise through it all. Thank you so much. It was a privilege. And Thad's not here, but Thad Holland, my boss, thank you for having my back. There were so many times I had to tell staff, please don't kill the messenger. and Thad was able to make sure that didn't happen. So I wanted to thank Kevin Strong too. I have the utmost respect for you, and thank you for always supporting our financial needs to maintain the safety and the health of our students and staff. Josh Darwood, I never thought I'd be working with you either. Thank you for your support with all our schools and the supplies that we asked for throughout this year. You never questioned me when I told you we needed something, and I never came up short on any supplies or protocols for the schools. I also, last but not least, the bus barn staff, they had one of the biggest challenges of all, and they worked very hard with us to maintain all those protocols, and they met the challenge, so I appreciate them greatly. It was such a team effort, and I'm so thankful for our staff and members of the community who supported and helped keep our schools at a minimal COVID exposure. I do want to add, I want to thank Cindy Gorley Webster and her mom, Lisa Gorley, who, along with other organizations such as the Rotary Club and other people in our community, they made hundreds of masks for us throughout the year, and I appreciate that greatly. I just wanted to acknowledge them. We did make it through the worst of this pandemic, and next year is looking brighter. Later this summer, OHA and ODE will announce final decisions for our schools in the fall, and I'm looking forward to getting back to a more normal routine. I just appreciate everybody's patience. I appreciate the support and the patience of the board. I know we have to have your support in order to be successful. And I'm very proud to be a part of this district and of this community. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Patty. Any questions for regarding the health and safety report? We just did it, yeah. Okay, let's see. Next on my report is the student investment account, an update on that. So if you go into your packet, 4B4, so the student investment account, SIA, is this year approximately $1.5 million account that's generated off the corporate activity tax. If you remember a couple years ago, we spent some time as a school board, as a community involvement, staff involvement, student involvement to develop a plan to use those funds to help the historically disadvantaged students. That's what the account is for. So we're going to get back on track. So if you look at that table, the first column shows us the SIA allowable use that we determined and the school board endorsed and we sent to ODE. So 45% of that budget will be used for health and safety. Approximately 28% of the budget to reduce class sizes, 22% for well-rounded education. So if you notice then you'll notice the description or activity that we identified to execute those ends. In the next column, you'll see the years, 2020, 21, and so forth. And it shows what we've done and what we haven't done. So for instance, if you notice health and safety budget, behavioral facilitator in 2020 and 21, we use those funds to fill that position. And some of you remember Billy. So that's what those funds were used for. And we have that position posted, and we will continue using those funds. As I won't read all of these, but as another example, additional opportunity room, staffing. So we use those funds to get staffing in place, 2021, 2020, 21, and we'll continue to use those funds in that direction. So if you notice, for instance, going down to reduce class sizes, license special education, we will implement those funds 2022 or 21, 22, and we'll continue to use those. We'll be on course. So we weren't able to use those funds this year because the corporate activity tax only came in about $500,000 and regular funding was short. So next year we're using those funds for additional K through 6 assistants, math and English teachers at the junior high. We have those positions posted, so we'll begin using those funds 21, 22 and beyond. Well-rounded education, you'll see that we'll post those music positions. We have the funding allotted for that December. And pay to play for next year. As an example, we'll use those funds to help break down any barriers kids would have to participate in extracurricular activities. So there's a list, and many of you you'll recognize some of these allocations, and you'll see what we were able to complete this year and what we'll move forward to completing in next year and the year after. Any questions? If there's no questions on my report, I'd like to take a moment and read my resignation. And Sweet Home's has been a special place for me, and I'd just like to take a moment to address this. So in your consent agenda, you'll see that I address the board, parents, staff, and students. Dear Sweet Home School Board, parents, staff, and students, effective June 14th, I'm submitting my resignation to the Sweet Home School Board. Now is a pivotal time for Sweet Home to seek out its next superintendent. The Sweet Home School District is in an outstanding place. I am proud to take part in our collective accomplishments over the past 5 years. To list a few achievements, we have raised graduation rates 18%. We've added more dual credit and CTE pathways, including forestry program, to complement our club. We've increased instructional days for students, moving from a 4-day week of 147 days to a 5-day week of 100. Next year will be 174 days. We've reversed 4-year math and English language arts trends to upward 3-year trends. We've installed PE classes in every elementary school, allowing a better time for teachers. And our organizational and operational programming is strong. We have implemented exceptional PLC and RTI instructional practices and PD, professional development, early release Wednesdays. We've implemented administrative walkthrough and electronic Danielson feedback systems with teachers. We've modernized our website, and we built a solid 5-year strategic plan with an ending date of 2023. Regarding contracts, we have solid contracts with our classified, certified, charter schools, a 10-year agreement. I think we have about 6 years left on that. Contracts with Jamboree. Regarding facilities, we are in excellent shape with safety and learning environment upgrades, with particular highlights to renovating Hawthorne, Foster, Holly, junior high, and the high school auditorium. Regarding our financial outlook, we are in outstanding financial shape with the assistance of the federal ESSER funds, or dollars. With the infusion of the student investment account, SIA funds, we will be able to add more staff to our junior high, music teachers to our elementary schools, more, and here's an editing error here, more K-12 support staff to our high-risk students, for our high-risk students, and eliminate all high school and junior high pay-to-play fees, so there are no barriers for students to participate in extracurricular activities. Mostly, I'd like to submit that the COVID-19 pandemic has proven what a solid and resilient staff and community we have. Transportation, nutrition, facilities, support offices, classified, certified, admin, and school board. We forged ahead, beginning the year with fire and smoke breathing down our necks and an unknown pandemic looming. We flipped a district in less than 2 months to 100% virtual instruction, and then brought students back for in-person instruction with all the OHA health and safety protocols in place. And as soon as ODE gave us more local control, we brought our students back. And finally, and most importantly, our students, families, and community partnered with us to overcome all the challenges this year threw at us. We are a strong district, ready to take on Sweet Home's new anticipated growth and future facility improvements while continuously improving our services and programs. Being Sweet Home superintendent has been the most rewarding professional experience of my life. As I look toward my future, I look forward to spending more time being a dad and husband and finding new ways to contribute to education. I'm committed to helping the district make a smooth transition for my replacement. And if needed, I'm more than happy to help consult with the new superintendent. Thank you for believing in me, and allowing me to serve as your district, serve our district as your superintendent. Sorry. We're Sweet Home Strong. Sincerely, Tom Yaris. Okay, and I also want to express to the school board that along with the admin team, we're going to build solid in-services professional development, and all the supporting materials, PowerPoints, all the way through August into September. So we're ready to go, and it'll be adaptable for the new superintendent. Will be turnkey. And that concludes my report.
We did have the Hawthorne principal hiring update.
Oh, sorry. So, thank you. I'll get an update there. So today met with Hawthorne staff where we're at. Tomorrow will be screening process for the Hawthorne principal position. We have a good cross-representation of folks on that committee, classified, certified, admin. Will be screening the apps. We have north of 13 apps in, and a few more I saw come in earlier today. Next Wednesday, we'll be going through interviews. We have rigorous interviews scheduled. And I will not participate in the screening, but I'll sit in on the interviews, and I'll take the recommendations of the committee, and I'll work with that, doing the reference checks, and if any further interviews need to happen, I'll execute those as well. I anticipate at the end of next week, we'll have a recommendation for a principal of Hawthorne.
All right. Thanks, Tom. All right, next we have the consent agenda. It's a big one. Guess I'll start reading. Okay. Second. We'll skip the reading tonight. All right, that'll shorten the meeting a lot. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on any of those items?
Only do we have to accept his resignation?
I think whether we accept it or not.
Yeah, he's given a 60-day contractual notice.
Right, hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? All right, the consent agenda passes. Budget update, Kevin.
Okay, thanks, Jason. We are in the home stretch for the fiscal year. Right now, through the month of May, year-to-date spending is just over $442,000 less than the same time period last year. Primary reasons for that: we've spent significantly less on substitutes this year, and we've also had some open positions that were not filled.
Okay. Any questions for Kevin? All right, thanks, Kevin. Facilities report, Josh.
Facilities, I'm on here, there we go. For facilities, we're doing good. As Patty said, we've been working on keeping things stocked, and the COVID stuff has been going as good as it could go. Graduation went really well. We had some firsts there with the setup was different this year. Steve Thorpe and I had talked about this actually a couple years ago, and so we pushed it out into the field this time, and I think it went really well. It was the first time with the improved sound system. It was our mobile sound system out there, and then also the first time for us to be streaming it. So that was some pretty cool stuff, and that was a lot of work with my team and team from the high school that pulled that off, so it was good. Things are going good with facilities.
All right, any questions for Josh? Okay, thank you, Josh. And back to Kevin for a 2021-22 budget update.
Okay, thanks, Jason. The 21-22 budget update, we are presenting to you what was approved at the budget committee with one change. It does not change the overall total at all, but the Governmental Accounting Standards Board has asked or has changed the definition of what a trust and agency fund is, and to reflect that in the budget that's presented in the board packet, the Student Activity Fund, the Early Retirement Liability Fund, and the JOSI Fund had been shown in the approved budget as part of the trust and agency fund. With the change in definition, those have now been moved to the special revenue fund. So we're just moving from one area to the other. The overall budget is the exact same total dollar amount.
All right, any questions for Kevin?
Kevin, I'm not sure if this is the right time to ask the question, but on the ending fund balance for June 30, I don't know if you can give me that number yet. Where will it be if you strip out all that federal money that we've been getting over the last couple of years?
The good thing for that is our general fund is tracked separately from the federal funds that we're receiving. So the general fund is unaffected by the federal funds. You could say there may be some expenses that we're able to charge to the federal funds that would have otherwise come out of the general fund that will help. And we would rely on that, especially if enrollment this fall does not rebound. We're going to be looking at that as kind of a shock absorber for us. But really, the general fund is its own separate fund, and we have separate funds set up for the federal funds.
So what will the ending fund balance be as in percent wise?
In percentage wise, we're looking at between 9 and 10% of the general fund for this year, which is up from just under 5% at the beginning of the year.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thanks, Kevin. All right, next we have a presentation from OSBA, Steve Kelly. Going to talk to us about a superintendent search and what they can do for us in this process.
First of all, let me say thank you very much for allowing me to be here in person. I knew I had the option to Zoom in, and but as I was telling some of you last week when we met, that my oldest son, Chris Kelly, was a graduate of Sweet Home High School. And I really wanted the opportunity to come back and just visit some of his old stomping grounds and walk the football field, although he would be jealous that it's now turf. And he graduated in 2005, so it was still the old grass and mud and dirt, but you know, he loved that kind of stuff. He was a football player, a wrestler, and baseball player. But I just want to tell you how deeply you impacted my son's life for the 2 years that he was here. I worked in Lebanon, but moved to Sweet Home for some time. But the culture, the community, your coaches, your staff, just, again, I can't tell you what a positive impact. So it's really a pleasure to be here tonight and hopefully be able to serve you in some capacity with your superintendent search. And Tom, while I understand resignations and leaving behind a school district that you have been a part of for such a long time, I know how difficult that is. I just want you to know that myself, my team, Oregon School Board Association is here to assist in whatever way you deem most appropriate. And so what I'd like to do tonight, in the spirit of these other fine reports that were concise and to the point, you guys really have it down pat. All right, I saw that list early and I thought, okay, I'll be going on about 8:30. You guys did great. I'll try to follow suit. What I'd like to do is just very briefly go over a proposed search calendar that was in your board packet. Would like to take any questions, but I'm going to be briefer than brief, so please stop me if I skip over something where you have a question. And then also I would like to then take questions about the proposal for a comprehensive search. It is my understanding that you would prefer what I call a permanent superintendent search, although it's relatively late in the year and most of our searches at this time are for interims. What I talked about with board leadership was the possibility of running a permanent search with jumping off points along the way, that if you weren't satisfied with the quantity or the quality in the candidate pool, or after first interviews, if you were not satisfied that you had the right person, that we could quickly pivot to an interim search. So I'll try to talk about that as I go through the calendar. And then last but not least, as a part of this, you were given some last minute information around a salary range. If you do choose OSBA to partner with, and we were going to do your marketing would like some direction. It's not an action item, but just some direction and a salary range that we could put in the marketing materials. So with that, if you have the calendar, see, I already missed Zoom because I could have just shared my screen. Everybody could have seen the calendar, but don't let my team know that I said that I missed Zoom. All right. So you'll see it starts on June 14th this evening. There's several things that we're going to talk about there. And again, immediately, if you're chosen, we'll go to work. We want to start the marketing period, as you'll see there, from June 16th to July 14th. It's a 4-week marketing or advertising period. That's a bit shorter than I like, but to meet your timelines, we had to make some modifications to my normal schedule, and I believe this is very doable. We've had a good year in terms of the quantity and quality in almost all of our searches. Recently, we did an interim search. We're wrapping up in Colton that had, for an interim position, 19 candidates. And that's a bit larger than we normally have. So there's still a lot of interest out there in superintendent positions. So 4 weeks, I believe, is adequate, given the marketing tools that we use. We contract out our marketing services. Greg McKenzie, who also used to be a superintendent search consultant. Actually, Greg and I used to work together over the last couple of years in superintendent searches across the state. Very knowledgeable, but he has built a database of over 40,000 names of administrators all over the United States, primarily west of the Mississippi, that get direct mailings and we have contact with. So we feel like we have a rich ground of potential applicants to advertise your position. The other thing that you'll see here is what we call our Qualities and Qualifications Survey. Normally we do this before the marketing period, but again, given your timeline and trying to make some modifications to shorten it up and to meet your expectations, we are going to do the survey, as you'll see here, starting tomorrow. It's an online survey. It'll be sent to all staff. Julie and Tom will help us market it to your parents and community members, but they go online, fill out this survey, and in part, what we'll glean out of that for your June 28th board meeting is the proposed qualities and qualifications, what you're looking for in your next superintendent. And that's one of the 3 requirements by law before you can go into executive session and do any part of this search. You have to declare vacancy as 1. 2, you have to adopt a calendar. Hopefully both of those things happen tonight. And then on June 28th, you would adopt your qualities and qualifications. And so you would meet all those requirements of the law. But more importantly, you will have gleaned from your staff and your community, what are they looking for in their next superintendent? That becomes your lens and a screening committee, if you choose to use a screening committee, their lens by which you look at the applications, that you filter the interviews, the reference checks that we would train you to do, and then finally your finalist forum, your second interview, that meet and greet with the community. This entire process is seen through the lens of what are we looking for? What are the qualities and qualifications? The other 2 things that we glean out of this online survey is what are the strengths of the school district and what are your challenges? The third question is what are the qualities and qualifications? You'll get all that information as a board. The most important for the search at the moment is the qualities and qualifications. The strengths I use in terms of trying to market the position, the challenges, we like to create interview questions around what are your challenges so that you're asking the right questions of your applicants so that you make the best match. In any pool, there could be multiple people that can do the job, but what you're looking for is what's best for Sweet Home. Every community I've worked with, small, medium, large, is unique. Sweet Home is no different. You want the right individual, not just a individual that can do the job. We're going to help you do that if you choose to allow us to do that. All right, moving on. See, I'm already not as concise as all your staff, Tom. You'll see July 19th would be the board, and I would advocate for what I call a screening committee. A screening committee is generally 10 to 15 individuals beyond the board that would assist the board in screening the applications. We'll come back and talk about that in just a moment, but I want to kind of give you an overall flair for the process. But on this July 19th, I would train the board and the screening committee what to look for in an application. I would also train you on how to use our database because we do everything online. You won't have to screen any paper products. You will do it all online. You'll do it from the comfort of your home once you are trained in executive session and we release that candidate list to you. And there's technical assistance all along the way. So if you're kind of like me and technology is not always your best friend, I've got really good people that can help all of us, myself included. All right, you'll see then you screen for not quite a week. Again, this is a very tight timeline. July 26th, we would come back. Oh, thank you, whoever put that up on the screen. But that was Julie, or no, maybe it was Josh, is that what it is? Yeah. Yes, all right, thank you. Anyway, we come back on the 26th, then we screen the applicants. The board chooses who they want for their interviews. Interviews are scheduled for the 1st, 2nd, 3rd. I think it says the 4th on your copy. We can certainly use that date if you would like. I had to modify that because I'm not available on the 4th, but if that is a date the board needs to use, then we'll figure out who can facilitate that process for you. After the interviews on the 1st through the 4th, you would choose your finalist. Generally speaking, the interview round is around 5 to 8 individuals. I expect your applicant pool to be 15 to 20, maybe as high as 25. Again, this is the latest search as I've ever run in terms of a permanent search. So I'm a little bit nervous about the candidate size or the pool of your candidates. But we'll see. Like I said, there's at any point in any place that I have described, we can turn this into an interim search. All right, August 10th is then your finalist forum, your day in the community. You bring back usually your top 2 or 3, your finalists. Second interview with the board. Usually there's a tour of the schools. There's a community meet and greet, moderated question and answer period. I would be here. We would set it up, again, depending on COVID protocols. And by that time, we're not sure what the COVID protocols would be in August 10th. Maybe none at all. Wouldn't that be nice? So we would set it up in a large space, a library, a gymnasium I've used here recently at Mount Angel. And I take questions from the audience, ask the candidates, the board's there watching the interaction. So at that point in time, anyone can interact with the candidates. And then shortly thereafter, you go into contract negotiations. You should be able to vote to hire by mid-August. Not as quick as my fellow presenters tonight, but that is a very quick overview of the calendar. There's a couple of points I'm going to go back and dig in a little deeper, but I'd like your questions about the calendar, if any.
Having done this before, it's a pretty tight calendar, I can see that. But what about if we're traveling, can we zoom in on the training?
Yes.
Okay. Number 2 is if we end up going with an interim, Tom, are you interested, or I haven't even talked to the board, but is that something that we're going to look at? Tom, maybe staying an extra month while we look down the road if we don't see the people we want to. It doesn't have to be answered right now. Those are questions I have. And then,
and before you go on, excellent question, because the interim, at any one of those phases that I talked about, we can switch to an interim process, but that does mean a re-advertisement. It does mean extending the process. So you're absolutely perceptive that it's going to take about another month. And so having an acting superintendent, whether it's Tom's willing to come back or you have somebody on staff, needs to be talked about at some point, not necessarily tonight.
Ahead of time,
yes.
And then the other thing is I believe, I'm looking at my calendar, but I think that's the week after the Jamboree, then the August 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Is that correct? Okay. 31 August 1st. I thought so, but I just wanted to make sure that that was, okay. Doesn't seem like that makes a difference, but it does because of all the people we have in town.
Oh, trust me, I've lived the Jamboree. I absolutely know that. And yes, we could adjust those dates, even if we adopted them tonight, if we saw that we needed to adjust those. There's a bit of a challenge there with the 4th, 5th, and 6th, given my colleague and I are out of town, but I have other support staff that can assist during that interview phase, so we can figure that out. We want you to create the calendar that works best for you. Excellent questions. Anyone else?
Is the questions right now only about the calendar, not your proposal for service?
Correct. I'd like to just flesh out the calendar, and then we can move to the proposal in just a moment. Thank you. If not, I'd like to come back and talk a little bit about the screening committee. It's my strongest encouragement to use the screening committee, to engage staff, to engage community members. It's the selection of the 10 to 15 that's a bit tricky on this very short timeline, because essentially 2 weeks from today, you should be naming those individuals. Normally what I would recommend, and we possibly could do this, but boy, it'd be quick. Normally I would suggest an application process. I have a template. Tomorrow I could send it, we could get it out, people would apply for the positions, then the board would look over those on the 28th, and then you would choose your committee from all those that applied. If you had more than the number, say you had 30 people apply, then I would ask you to try to narrow that down a bit, try to get closer to that 15 number. But generally speaking, most people, if not all, can be accepted if they apply. The other way to do it, and which is perhaps quicker, is to allow the board chair to appoint or bring forth names to the meeting on the 28th. And then board members could make contacts, recruit, give names to the board chair, and then the board chair could kind of sort out your recommendation to present to the board. Because what you really want with your screening committee is a good cross-representation. You want staff from all your schools. You want some classified, some certified, some administrative. You want a good balance of staff and non-staff. And again, the quickest way to do that is to submit names to your board chair, because by law, they do have the ability to submit and create a subcommittee. But because you have a board meeting on the 28th, you could bring those names forth and get it blessed by the board on the 28th.
And I have no problems with that. I would make that motion if that's applicable at this time.
I don't know that, we're just talking about process, so I don't know that we need a motion or.
A general consensus, I don't think it's an action item, but a general consensus of the board would give me some direction in order of what I need to do to support you.
Everybody all right with that? That doesn't mean you guys get out of it. You still have to help bring me names.
If you can give Jason names, then Jason, you'll need to make some contacts, because you're going to want to make sure these people are available on the dates that are in the calendar. And they should be, at a minimum, available for the 19th and the 26th. And both of those I can do virtually. Actually, this entire process I would do virtually, with the exception of the day in the community. Your first round of interviews, the 19th, the 26th, it's very easy to do all that work virtually. So if they're available anywhere, Jason, then they could be on this screening committee, and same with the board. If for some reason they weren't available on the night of the 19th, then you mentioned that you may not be, or you may be out of the area, I can do a training the day after if that was more conducive to anybody. So if you run across a screening committee member that you really want on there, but the night of the 19th they just can't do, I can work that out. Okay? So I've got some flexibility there. I wouldn't make it much past the 20th, because you only have the 20th through the 25th to screen these applications. So I think we're settled on your screening committee. Again, I would look in and around 15-ish. If you had a few more, it won't be the end of the world, but you want to keep it a somewhat manageable size. The other thing I want to stress to the board is the role of the board is different than the role of the screening committee. And I make that very clear to the screening committee in the training. Both groups will screen applicants, but the screening committee's role is to give you feedback. When they're done, their job is done, then the board deliberates. You retain the deliberation, the decision-making. It's not a group of 9 plus 15, the board deliberates. And you do that in private so that we can have the conversations that we need to have. And so I just make that very clear up front because sometimes my boards worry, well, Steve, my gosh, how are we going to make any decisions? That's, 30 people in the room. So that's one distinction that I try to draw there. All right, any other questions about the calendar? If not, I'll shift to the proposal. If you had any questions about the proposal. And it's really not my intention to take you through the proposal other than just to highlight a couple of things. One, the cost of this search, if for whatever reason we had to switch to an interim search, there's no additional cost. If we run this search and you don't find the right person at the end of it, and we run the interim search, and then we have to do this search again, it's the same cost, with the exception of any additional travel time. The base fee is the same. What I'm trying to say to you is, I'm with you until we find the right person. And even then, if we don't find the right person and that person leaves you for some reason within the first 2 years, we'll come back and do the search again for only the travel cost. There's no base fee. We guarantee our work. It's a 2-year guarantee in that sense. And in the 5 years that I've been doing this, that's only happened to me one time, that I've had a superintendent leave within the first 2 years of their new employment. It's a strong process. We believe in our process, and we've got good people to assist you. The other thing that's unique about this proposal at the end is even when we find the right person and it's time for them to come on board, you're not quite done with me. We believe in our transition program. There's 9 hours of professional development that's a part of this fee. And that is to help build that relationship with the new superintendent. We'll help you set up that superintendent evaluation, have the conversations you need to have right out of the gate to set that up. We're going to help you set up your expectations of them and their expectations of you. We're going to talk about communication protocols. We're going to talk about roles and responsibilities. Any other challenges that came up in the search, we're going to try to help you get off on the right foot right off the bat. So those are a couple of unique things in our proposal that you don't find in other search agency proposals. With that, I'll drop my salesman hat. Mike, I think you had a question.
Well, my comment would be, I think you answered one of them about the whole interim, switching to interim, and then if you had to come back a year later and start over, let's say next January or something, this is all part of that deal. So that answered one of my questions. The other one I just want to remind my fellow board members is that we're going to have quite potentially 3 new members come next month. We know for sure one, we don't know for sure about the other 2. It'll depend upon the appointment process and whether someone from Crawfordsville or someone from Foster applies or not before we can open it up for other people like Dale or Joe to try and re-up again on an appointment process. That's not no guarantee at this point in time. So I think that the idea that these 3 new people could be coming, and I think it makes the full meal deal proposal that he just talked about briefly very well worth it, and their guidance through this process. We haven't done that with them, and since I can remember being on the board, we did, I think that Greg McKenzie was the guy I couldn't think of.
Okay, yeah.
But from before, we used him once before. And we did it ourselves, I think, last time, pretty much. And I know there's other times where the board did it themselves. And but I think in this case, with some potentially 3 new members coming online, and be well worth our $9,000 whatever dollars it was for this package. That I think it'd be worth doing in the time this go around, especially since we're kind of under the shorter process maybe than the board would prefer to have, and so I think that would help us out.
I have to agree 100%. The new people coming on, may or may not have any experience at all in the process. And without giving them some ideas of where and what's expected and how that's, communication is the key to any school board or any board of any kind. And if we don't know how to have that communication, it can fall apart real fast.
Yeah, and the 9 hours of professional development for the board superintendent staff would be very helpful in that as well.
And I also would like to just very quickly add, and thank you, Mike, for that endorsement, is that that's the base fee. Your travel expenses are beyond that, but being so close to Salem, your travel costs are going to be minimal. Really, I don't anticipate any overnight stays or anything like that. I literally live in Staten. It took me like 35 minutes to get here because I took the back roads, which hadn't done in a while. I thought that was interesting. But anyway. Well, we can talk. But thank you. Any other questions about the proposal itself? If not, I had one other quick item. Again, it's not an action item, but I do need some general consensus about what you would like to put in the advertisement for the salary range. And some information was sent your way late today, and I apologize for that. Our database at work was down for a few days over the weekend, so I was unable to crunch those numbers. There's really three charts there. The first one is by similar size ADM, and then I think my colleague also did it by county and then by your LBL service district. I think the one that's most telling is the one of similar size districts. I think you see the average there in the shaded column is about $150,000 if I remember correctly. But if you take out the high and the low, which I did without removing any data, but just for my own satisfaction, it was closer to 145.
Which is a little higher than what our salary range is now.
It was a little higher, but it wasn't quite as high as what the average was. So yes, it was slightly higher. I think yours is knocking on the door of 140. I guess it actually looked.
139,050.
Okay, that sounds right. So you're right at that 140. So the average, if you take out the high and the low, was because you've got a high here of was it Jefferson, almost 205,000. I mean, that knocks the average up. That's unusual. So that's why I took out the high and the low. So the average was about 145. Generally speaking, I recommend a range to start your conversation with that 145 kind of in the middle. So for your consideration and your discussion, I would recommend a range of 135 to 150.
Because the Lynn Benton Lincoln ESD doesn't really compare with us either, because the folks there are at a little bit higher level than what we're dealing with here. They're a little more professional, so it's going to demand a little higher wage at the ESD than those here also. That's the 165.
Agreed. And that's really nice to know information my colleague throws in, because we get asked, well, what are the other school districts around us paying, even if they're much smaller or much larger? I personally lean on that first chart of similar sized districts more heavily than the others.
Does the conversation about TSA and all that stuff become part of the marketing piece of it or not? Just the salary range?
Just the salary range.
That's a column that kind of surprised me. I guess I didn't realize that you're one of the few that don't do that. And
that information is there. One of the things after tonight, I'll send you, and I'll talk a little bit about it on July 19th, but you're getting ready for your contract negotiations. There's a checklist that my team has created that kind of walks you through what to do to prepare for the very last step, which is once you've identified your top choice, after we go through this process, you immediately move into contract negotiations. So you have to be ready to do that. Salary range we talk about because that's always the big ticket for marketing. But all this other information, you as a board, and particularly with your new board members, will talk about throughout the process and make sure your contract's ready to go. So you have parameters for your new superintendent Because you will appoint one or two individuals to negotiate that contract for you. Now, when I say negotiate for you, I mean go out and do the preliminary conversations, but the contract comes back to the board as a whole to approve. But you need to give them some parameters. Salary range is one of those parameters. What about a TSA? Are you going to entertain that? Are you going to offer that? What about vacation days? Tax sheltered annuity. Sorry, yeah. No, thank you for asking. Yes, and other things like that will go into your contract parameter conversation. And I'll help facilitate that throughout the process.
Well, you know, it took us quite a while to bring Sweet Home up to where it is now, and it looks like we're still falling behind. And so I'm not personally opposed to the range she suggested in negotiating with the new superintendent, just for advertising purposes.
And the number I would ask you to be very careful with or comfortable with is your bottom number. Because when you get into contract negotiations and you've advertised a 135 to 150, but you start with an offer of 130, then out of the gate, you're not being genuine. Sure. You're not being true. I want you to be comfortable with the low number, because the high number, if you exceed it in your negotiations, no one's going to complain about that.
Right? Kevin.
You know, and you have to think of this range as, what if you have a superintendent or a candidate that you like, but has no superintendent experience? You're probably starting them on the lower end of the scale. Or you might have a candidate, the top choice, that has lots of years of experience. And so you want to be able to attract that with the upper end of your scale. The other thing that I want to point out is all the information that you see here, all your candidates will have. They will know what the averages are. They will know the similar sized districts. And so they come armed with this information. So that's why I want to make sure that you have it.
I think the 135 is obviously in our range, but I'd also like to remember that Sweet Home, like I said, it's been a while getting up to this stuff. I don't know how, except the school districts are paying that much, especially higher now, because I was born. We got to be really careful with our superintendent. Keep bumping it up, especially with somebody that's proven. We bump up the superintendent salary, then our unions, we're bumping them up higher than what we're giving them. What does that show to them? So, you look inside of our Lynn County, other smaller districts, but that's down $150,000. A lot of money.
But you make an excellent point, right? It's not like this is done in isolation. And, you know, your employee groups, everyone looks at it. It's a very public process. At no time can you go into executive session and talk about the contract and these numbers. All of this will happen in a public session. So it is very transparent in that way. And as I said earlier, every community is unique. I'm just trying to show you some of the numbers and the averages, because your candidates are going to present this at some point in time. But you make excellent points. I just want to check for clarity, but it sounds like we're okay with 135 to 150.
I don't hear any opposition to that.
Okay, great. Any other questions for me? Again, I tried to be brief. It's hard to be as good as these people. Yeah, you got it.
How have you seen this go with superintendents? It's been another year. A lot of people are tired, worn out. Are you seeing the same, the normal type of applications, or less, higher?
Slightly more, but not a
more people want the position.
Well, there's slightly more I think superintendent saying, man, I've had a heck of a year. I can retire, so I will retire. But just slightly higher. And at the beginning of this year, I told my colleague, Sarah Hurd, I said, well, we're going to have a lot of searches this year. This has got to wear on superintendents. I mean, I was a superintendent in a previous life. I worked in Lebanon. I was assistant superintendent there for 8 years, but then I was the superintendent in the South Umpqua School District. Loved being a superintendent. And the only thing that can get me out of that seat was the job that I have now and getting to do the work that I do now. But my colleagues all across this state and boards, let's don't leave out you guys, what incredible pressure that communities put on boards and superintendents. And quite honestly, in places where there's not a good relationship between the board and the superintendent is what drove out a lot of superintendents. Now, I don't see that here. All I see is a tremendous relationship, a working relationship between you and Tom. But there's been plenty of my colleagues that just said, right? I mean, you know, you've heard it across the state. You've been in on those Zoom calls. But yet there are still plenty of people that are willing to step up and say, you know what, I want my turn. I want to do this work because they know COVID is temporary and student achievement is for always and forever. And every community has student achievement challenges, no matter you know, how big or how small or how well the school district is or how poor. We all have challenges in student achievement. And there's been a fair number of people that want to step up and say, now what you're going to see in your pool is not as much Oregon experience. You're going to see more first-time superintendents, and you're going to see out-of-state superintendents that may be retiring from another state that still have lots of years left and want to serve, and they want to come to Oregon. That's the trend that I have seen this year over other years.
All right, any other questions for Steve? Okay.
Again, I just want to thank you, and again, I'm hopeful that later that you hire OSBA to assist. Again, my connection to your school district is, as I said earlier, personal. And I look forward to the opportunity to serve you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. So we're a little past the 7 o'clock range for our public hearing on the budget. So I will ask once again, we haven't had any other comments submitted or anything like that in the interim. Okay. So I will close the public hearing for the budget, and we have that as a action item to
Make a motion to approve resolution number 05-2021.
Not quite there, are we?
We're not quite there, but we can get through this last little piece and then we'll go there. All right, thanks. All right, so next we have this second reading for the board policy updates. Did anybody have anything on any of those, Tom? Okay.
In that case, Mr. Chair, I move we move these items down to the action item section.
Okay. Second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second with Dale. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? All right, so we will add action item H, board policy updates. All right, now, Jim, if you would like to. Which resolution?
Resolution number 5-20.
05-2021.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution 05-2021. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, now we have resolution 06-2021.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second on resolution 06, 2021.
I get some feedback from Kevin on this one? Explain it a little more in detail?
Yeah.
Sure. This ties in with the change in the 21-22 budget. What we are doing, the total amount stays the same for the current year budget, but we are moving the student activity fund, the early retirement liability fund, and the JOSI fund out of the trust and agency funds and into the special revenue fund to comply with the new definition from the Governmental Accounting Standards Board for what a trust and agency fund is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? All right, resolution 06, 2021 passes. All right, next we have the opportunity to certify the May 18, 2021 election results. There was a final, here someplace, 7C, should be an addition. So we have Zone 2 Liberty, Janice Albert, Zone 5 at large, Jason Van Eck, Zone 7 at large, myself, and Zone 8 at large, Jim Gorley. And then the one write-in was Sarah Hoffman from Holly. And then the other two write-ins were contacted for their eligibility and oh, I just lost their names here. I'm sorry. Elizabeth Ruck had not lived within the district for a year, so she was not qualified to take the position. And John Marble was the other one for Zone 6 Crawfordsville, and he opted not to accept the position. So that's thanks to Julie for chasing those down for us and getting some direction tonight on that. So.
Okay, with that information, I would move that we certify the May 18 election.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next, we get to declare vacancies at Zone 3 Foster and Zone 6 Crawfordsville. Those are the two that had the write-ins that either were not eligible or did not accept the position.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, Jim and Mike, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion passes. And then E, declare the superintendent vacancy notice.
So moved.
Second.
Deal with the motion. Mike with the second there. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion passes. Next, approve the OSBA search agreement for service. And a couple options there, right? Got the full meal deal, and then we've got the scaled back version.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the proposal for the full meal package, speaking loosely for the two-year guarantee, the whole 9 yards, so that it's quite helpful with our new members coming on.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. That was Jim on the second. Yeah. All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? All right, motion passes. And then G, late item, approve the superintendent search calendar.
And since we know it's subject, we can change if we want, I'll go ahead and move that we approve the one that was presented tonight.
Second?
Like Dale beat him on that one. All right. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? All right, that motion passes. And then H, board policy updates. This is CBA, Qualifications and Duties of the Superintendent, IIBGA, Electronic Communication Systems, and then IIBGA, the AR that goes along with it, Electronic Communication Systems.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve policy CBA, IIBGA, and IIBGA-AR.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, do we have any board comments this evening?
I'd like to express my thanks to Chance and Jenny and Dale and Joe for their service here for the last however long they've been here. I mean, Chance been here for a long time, and Jenny's been on and off here more than once, so she's helped us out twice, different times. And Dale and Joe, maybe you come back, we'll see. That'd be great. And appreciate you guys being here and willing to serve.
Absolutely.
I would second that.
A couple of you knew what was coming before you signed up for it, so.
I'd like to thank Tom. That really wrote Tom. Sorry to leave, but I understand it. And I think he did a great job. As a board member, I've seen several superintendents come and go, but we're an interesting one. You know, I'm kind of tough on you, let you know that. Bit of a grain of salt, we ran with it, and he's never disappointed. Always up front. Still, there's quality in it. I told everybody, I'll say it again. I look for leadership, and you have a unique ability for the right person, the right spot. I look at my job, and people around me, but you know, you do, and it seems to really make things go smoothly. I didn't see where you overstepped and tried to do everything yourself. I've seen that happen before, and that's a disaster. So you delegated, watched it. I think it's big one is the better school district.
I agree.
Means a lot come from you.
Anything else? All right, we don't have any late items that we added, so future agenda items, late edition, special board meeting, June 28th, 2021 at 6:30 here in the boardroom. This will be to deal with the beginning of the superintendent search. So please be here. There will be some important things we need to do, take action there, correct? On that one, so yes, please be here. That'll give us the opportunity to do it before the other board members leave actually also, so it'll be more of a full board stamp on that, so please go if you can. OSBA Virtual Summer Conference is July 9th, 2021. If you're interested in attending that, talk to Julie, right? And she'll get you hooked up with that. Next board officers meeting is July 12th, 2021 at 3:30. Looks like we're gonna have a Zoom meeting.
I'll be gone.
You'll be gone. That may be why we're doing a Zoom meeting.
Maybe.
I don't know. But yeah, we'll get together. If you have something you need on the agenda.
Oh, no, I won't be gone the 12th. I'm sorry. I could do that in person. There's a reason we're doing it Zoom.
We'll figure that out. Okay, if you need something on the agenda before, for next month, please get with one of us, get it discussed there. And then the next board meeting is July 19th, 2021 at 6:30 here in the district office boardroom.
Which please note it's a week later than normal. So, because of this superintendent calendar.
Right. All right, and we're adjourned.